According to this, now coming to you live on YouTube. We're not the only show, of course, live on YouTube right now, but we are the best.
The best.
Yes, we're the best, and we are the hockey. All right, here's my latest pet peeve. And this is the We Are Farmers bump commercial, which everybody knows. We farmers. All right, well that's spurred on, and that's a good commercial. It's a good slogan, a great jingle. It does all the things a jingle should do. But the whole concept of we are something is just overrunning the world. Like it's like we could this is HockeyBuzzcast and we are hockey podcasts.
Right.
Every commercial is we are.
It's reflective of the spread of socialism in the world.
And there we are. And we're off. Go ahead, Mike. I have a drink. Go ahead. You continue.
No, it's all this collective. Like we are farmers. It's like no, you are farmers. I'm the son of a bitch you steal money from every month.
There you go.
Yeah, that's fair. I got an email. I got to share it with you guys because everybody goes to or has a Super Bowl party, right?
Yeah.
And here's the email I get. This is the ultimate buzzkill. This is how lawyers will eventually kill Super Bowl parties. So the email says, and I posted it on my Facebook page if people want to see it, Super Bowl party social host liability checklist. Oh, yeah.
Wait. By the way,
social host liability checklist?
Yes.
There are bars that cannot advertise and say Super Bowl,
right?
The big game.
The big game. Right. Because they'll get sued.
Goes back to my favorite Colbert skit of all time. My favorite Colbert skit of all time. I wish I could it would show up, but we would get shut down. Anyway, he gets on last year. The Super Bowl is coming up, and he's like, "We would love to talk about the big game that's coming on Sunday to determine the championship of the world of the oblong ball game." But he said, so instead we decided to come up with our own slogan for the big game, and it's this owl, and he showed a picture of an owl, and we call this the superb owl. And he said, so if you want to help us out, hashtag superb owl, and which is obviously Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No.
Wait, I gotta finish reading this list because this list is awesome.
Yeah.
If you're providing food, drinks, and fun this Super Bowl Sunday, remember you're responsible for your guests' safety and what could happen if they leave the party impaired. Designate a sober driver before the party kicks off or contact a local car service to provide rides for your guests. Make sure your driveway, sidewalk, and steps are clear of snow, ice, and other debris. Limit your own consumption of alcohol so that you may better judge your guest's sobriety. Take a timeout after each drink consumed and follow up with a water to rehydrate. Mix up the play calling by serving plenty of food options as well as non-alcoholic beverages. Stop serving alcohol during halftime and offer water and coffee to your guests.
At least make them have to pay for it after halftime. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Right, and then this is the pitch. And then call your local independent insurance agent before the big game to review your policy and make sure you have adequate liability limits.
Wait a second. They expect you to stop alcohol consumption at halftime when most NFL stadiums don't stop alcohol consumption until the fourth quarter.
Right, but they're covered under liability. You may not be.
Oh my God. Wow. When is the Super Bowl, by the way? Is it
February 5th?
February 5th. Okay.
But I'm just saying, this is you want to suck all the fun out of the parties? That's the email that'll do it.
Yeah, that's just phenomenal. I love that. Where does it come from?
From an insurance agent. A company. I won't say the company because I'm not giving them credit.
Are they farmers?
No, they're not.
Do they travel great distances?
Right.
It's just
Are they like a good neighbor?
Crazy. I'm not giving out any hints.
Hey, they're farmers too. State Farm.
Because if there's one solid part of, never mind. All right, no, we're not gonna go there. Okay, that's hilarious. Well, I like that. I know. All I look forward to is the Puppy Bowl, and we've talked about this before.
Yep, me too.
I know the Puppy Bowl probably already has been played, right? Like they already played.
Oh yeah, I couldn't even get in this summer. I tried.
You got it before though, right? So you actually saw the arena and everything.
That was in New York where they had a mock one. I've not seen the real one. I've only interviewed the referee a few times, and I probably will do it again this year.
So where is the real arena?
It's somewhere in Connecticut.
Okay, interesting. Because it was funny because the Puppy Bowl has gotten so big that like our local newspaper in this area, which is really small, like little West Pennsylvania, front story, dog from local shelter in Puppy Bowl. Like it was hilarious. I'm like, this is great.
Does the lingerie bowl still exist?
No,
that stinks.
there's not enough people like you, Mike.
Especially the puppy lingerie bowl. That was really good. I like that one the most.
Yeah.
All right, let's start the show, shall we? Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, January 17th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agella.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings. It is brought to you by people like you at patreon.com/hockey. We thank you so much for your support. We wish we could come and send cookies to all of you right now.
No, you don't. You can't. You can't send them. Are you covered for that? Do you have liability?
No.
Someone gets a cookie and they choke on it.
That's true. I can't do anything.
No,
Eddie, you can't do anything in this world without being sued for it. So
you can't sell lemonade on your corner anymore.
You don't know if anybody has peanut allergies or if they're diabetic. I mean, you
right.
don't do that.
Come on, don't be reckless.
No, I'm sorry. I'm really. I take that all back. We don't want to send you anything. Nothing at all. For thanking, but we just want to thank you and with all of our hearts.
I was so proud back in the day when I was a kid. I used to sell lemonade and cookies for the muscular dystrophy telethon, and now all I do is open up myself to a lawsuit. So you know what? Screw everybody.
Right. Oh my God. The NHL has issued a memo to all clubs and goalies saying, and apparently a lot of media members, saying all must be wearing the new redesigned size-appropriate pants by February 4th. That's right. Russ, will you and I be in the press box wearing these size-appropriate pants on February 4th? I think this is the perfect opportunity to not wear the size-appropriate pants.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. So
yes.
I probably have a pair or two like the Seinfeld 32s that are now like 33 and a half and fit me better. And then I have some that are 34 that fit me, just a little big. So I think those are size appropriate. I don't know what else they're talking about.
That's right there. I mean, I'm in the same boat, 33, 34. That's right where I am. Some 33s work, some 34 works. That's
right.
I think size appropriate means that if the button flies off, it won't pierce somebody's eye. And
right. So this is the beginning of the transition team, so to speak, for hockey goaltending. For hockey goaltending new size equipment. There's a bunch of different, things coming, pads, everything else, but this is the pants section of it. So the new redesigned size appropriate pants, which means the 5-hole will never loom larger than it will after February 4th, because this is is this going to change anything? I mean, pants are a big issue. I do agree.
It is. I'll tell you what's going to happen.
I never wear them for the podcast, but I know that they're important.
Someone like Henrik Lundqvist, who lost all that weight, he's going to put it back on before February 5th so he can get bigger pants.
Yeah, is that the deal? So how do you determine? Do we know this exactly? Don't type things like that into our chat room. Do we know exactly what is? It determines if you're it can't be that Ben Bishop and Michael Neuwirth can't wear the same size appropriate pants. I mean,
no, it's. I mean, I would assume that it's appropriate to the stature of the player, but what they're trying to avoid here is somebody wearing baggy pants, somebody wearing oversized to take up an extra inch on each side to prevent the puck from deflecting off, or they want more room. They don't want the pants equivalent of Garth Snow's those shoulder pads that would look like they were roofing.
Although I've seen Garth Snow in suits and they look fine, so I don't think it translated outside.
Yeah, that was he was in the 90s and shoulder pads were out in the late 80s, but that was the 90s, and I remember that. I'll never forget the big Garth Snow game that I think of as a game 7 of a Penguins Flyers series where Garth Snow gets thrown in at the last second because Hextall's hurt, and he wins the game 7 and wins the series. But he goes in there with those, and that's the first time I had noticed and seen those gigantic shoulder pads, which looked like basically a shield that he was wearing. that came up on the sides of his, like this almost, to the sides of his head.
Looked like a skateboard ramp. That's what they
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and I kind of wonder now. I saw a picture yesterday of Henrik Lundqvist breaking in new equipment because clearly, he's not having the best season. Maybe he's going to put in new pads. I kind of wonder if he was breaking in new pants too.
That was it. I bet, because February 4th is not that far away.
No.
You'd have to. Now pants. Of all the goalie equipment that I own, I have a pair of goalie pants right over there, which we could show you later. But
we don't need to see them.
Yeah, please.
You've all seen goalie pants. They don't need to be broken in very much.
No, but you have to be used to wearing them, right? You don't want to put on a pair for the first time.
No, for sure. Especially these guys who are really fine-tuned machines. They are really finely tuned, and they're this will affect the five hole, and I say that jokingly because it will affect the butterfly stance and going down in the five hole, and
they could chafe.
They could chafe. This is just rife with awful puns. Obviously, this whole thing and beyond. And the first thing to be pants, I think is really pretty funny.
It's the most innocuous of all of them. There were so many other ones that were more meaningful, like the size of the pads. But they went pants.
Oh yeah, there's so many things. There's so many other places they could have gone with this, but they went to the pants. And I guess my thinking is because the pants are the easiest thing to break in. If you wear pads, you really do have to wear goalie pads for a long time. I have.
But why is it pants after February? Why didn't it start
because the manufacturers didn't have the equipment ready.
Right, and that's because at the end of the day, they claim the NHL got them the dimensions too late, and so everybody's passing the buck here. So whatever.
Wait, we're in a world where we see basically a championship team. They have hats the minute they win. Of course, they have winning and losing sides hats. They're all ready to go. How many goalies are we talking about?
We see a Samsung Galaxy new phone every 5 months for crying out loud. Can't we get pants quicker than this?
We can't get pants. We're talking about 100 goalies if you're gonna.
A lot of new technology. Pants have been around for a long time. You don't have to re-enter.
There's a lot of our work seamstresses. Come on.
My grandfather was a tailor. I could have locked him in a room during the holidays, and he could have done it.
Yeah, I don't want to be around when they're measured to see what's appropriate.
Right.
What the hell is that? That's the one thing that I wonder about. I really have to. I guess
we're gonna have to ask the Flyers.
This is what our job has come to, Russ. This is what our job has come to. I have to now ask, what are the appropriate dimensions of a goalie's nether regions? That.
Well, no, we're. I forget now. I'm not forgetting the name. Derek. We're gonna have to talk to Derek and see if he did the measurements for the Flyers.
Yeah, right. Have you measured it?
Is Kay Whitmore going around to the entire league and measuring the inseam of every pants and every goaltender?
Or is it the equipment guys? That's where I'm curious.
And this has got to be getting the goalies and the players have to be having a lot of fun with this. This is gonna be something that they're gonna really enjoy. Just the other day I had a woman at the at Buckman ski shop around the corner from me. I was trying to buy gloves because I was working on my godforsaken rink.
I'm surprised that place is still in business, but it's on 309, right? So I guess
it's on 309. It's really close to me, and so I go there, and things are it's ridiculously expensive. You can only go there, and they have the sales. But anyway, so they were having a sale, so I'm there, and I'm wanting to buy gloves because they're having a sale because obviously winter is a thing that happened only last in the early 2000s. So so their gloves are really cheap now. So I'm in there and I'm buying these gloves. And she's like, what size hands do you have? I'm like, well, I wear extra large gloves. She's like, oh, it's like, doesn't mean it. Anyway, size appropriate pants. We'll find out what they are. I'm going to personally make sure that, I'm wearing size appropriate pants after February 4th, or maybe pants at all during the podcast. That would be good.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, thanks for the visual.
My kids always joke around about that because literally, I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys do as well, but sometimes I dressed up and I have sweatpants shorts on.
Oh yeah. I've gotten
Well, it's well known that during a lot of late night David Letterman shows, he'd have most of the time he would walk out and do the monologue.
Yeah.
Would go back behind stage after the monologue and put on a pair of shorts, and he would just be wearing the jacket and the tie, but he wouldn't be wearing pants.
Yeah, I've heard that, and that's why his Worldwide Pants is his company. Anyway, we get off track.
And now he's unrecognizable. But anyhow.
So last night, 8-7.
All right.
talk about this game.
I've seen headlines, one for the ages. Like I'm gonna break it back, go back to Eck when we were covering Flyers, Penguins in the playoffs, and there was like 7 to 6 games.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I think one of those games is one for the ages. So I reviewed all these goals from this game, and I watched the third period, and there was a lot of sloppy, bad defensive, bad goaltending in this game. And so I can't call it one for the ages based on that.
I caught the second half of the game because I saw the response and like, oh my God, and on Twitter, and I immediately changed the channel to it. And what I said online was they're playing with playoff-like effort and playoff-like speed, but not in control. They were all over the place. The puck was bouncing all over the place. The one goal, the tying goal, God, I can't even remember who. I think it was Kuznetsov, but for Washington. But the puck was all over the place. The puck was batted. It was just not in control. Not a game for the ages. Not something you would say for the Hockey Hall of Fame. It was exciting. It was interesting, but it wasn't really classic.
Yeah, it wasn't. It felt like at some point these players just decide they were just going to go for it. At some point defense just goes out the window and they play and it felt like an all-star game to me more than anything else. That's really, and it was close, which made it interesting. There were some weird stats involving this game. First of all, like the Crosby 87 stat, that someone put out there. The Crosby wears 87, pulled into a tie for 87th all time in scoring after winning an 8-7 game. That's a good one. I like that one. And
That's good.
Malkin's hat trick in the second period.
Malkin gets a hat trick, yep. And the crazy thing that the Capitals going into this game had not allowed an even strength goal in 321 minutes.
Wow. And
they allowed 5 in 8 minutes last night against the Penguins. So that 321 minutes without an even strength goal, that's
no, I'm because Grubauer was in late in the game, so I'm assuming Holtby started this game and got yanked. If that's not the case,
Holtby got yanked.
Yeah, now this has to be a concern for Barry Trotz and the Caps because I've seen Holtby play, I think, 3 times in the last couple weeks. He got yanked after giving up 3 goals and 8 shots against Toronto. He gets yanked in this game. He was playing as good as Carey Price 2 years ago. Last year, he was a really effective goaltender and played well in the playoffs, even though they lost to Pittsburgh. But they need him to play at that level to win. And I think there's a little bit of, even though they're like right now in the lead for the President's Trophy, which really is meaningless, I think they're doing it more on their offense and more on Ovechkin and Backstrom carrying them than Holtby standing on his head. And they need Holtby to be at that level for them to win.
Sure, but now there's almost no debate about what's going to happen with Matt Murray and the Penguins because he gave up 7 in this game. He gave up 4 the game before. On December 22nd, he gave up 6. Like he's not been the same since his hand injury. We don't know if his hand's 100%, but it's going to be awfully hard to trade either of their goalies now. So that's why I don't think either of their goalies are going anywhere because they're going to have to make a decision at some point who their starting goalie is too.
No, they really are, and it's going to get.
Well,
I think you would have to think that Murray would be able to pick it up again, but. That's not easy to do, for a young goal. He's still a young goal. He's still technically in the
he's still a rookie.
Technically a rookie, which seems crazy because he's played so many games in so many situations. But.
Well, it's weird how the Pittsburgh and the Tampa Bay situations have mirrored each other because Vasilevsky has not played as well as people thought he would play for Tampa Bay. As soon as Bishop got back from his injury, Bishop went in. They're in a tight race for a playoff spot. I don't think Pittsburgh is going to move Fleury because maybe they just want that insurance of having both goaltenders there. I'm not so sure that Yzerman's going to move Bishop because he doesn't need to move him for cap space, and he's not 100% sure what Vasilevsky is doing right now. So I think they're going to keep Bishop, and I think that Pittsburgh's going to keep Fleury.
And Eck, we talked about this yesterday, but you have to admit now. And I think you could blame Dave Hackstall for this. The Flyers no longer have a number 1 goalie either.
Oh yeah, no, they don't. They don't. And I mean, I don't know if it's
there's 3 teams that are playoff teams that really don't know who their goalie is going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you blame Hextall for this one.
No, Hackstall, not Hextall.
Hackstall, sorry, yeah. I don't even know if you can do that because, like we talked about before, the situation is, but and then you had Neuwirth hurt for so long. It's a hard one to really say. They've got it. I mean, they looked.
Well, they had Mason Wright during that stretch, right?
They did, and he was really good.
And he was great. Then the minute Neuwirth came back, they threw him back in.
Yeah,
they didn't have to do that.
No, they could have. They didn't. They could have. Although Mason was starting to go south before Neuwirth came back, so I think that's why they did it.
Okay, and then Mason did play a few in a row, but then the game that everybody said that Hackstall was brilliant when he pulled Mason may have done more damage than just getting a win in that game.
That I do agree with. And I think they could have gotten more time from Stolarz in there somehow too.
And that was my next point: is they may have to put Stolarz in and see.
Yeah, because you really do have to put him in. They really are at the point where they need to know what the heck they have with him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, goaltending right now is sort of like really. I mean, it's always a key component of any team having stability and being able to rack up wins. But you look at Dallas; their problems continue. Lettinen, Niemi, both playing badly. The goaltending was costly in a game against Buffalo yesterday. Winnipeg, as we were talking about yesterday, there was some, Connor Hellebuyck has not played well the last week or so. It's beginning to be a concern. Michael Hutchinson's their backup, but he hasn't played well either. They call up Pavlik today. So they're in full panic mode. Buffalo doesn't know who their number one is. Leonard keeps either getting hurt or getting sick, and every time he starts to put things together, something happens. They go to Anders Nielsen. He plays okay, but he's not a number one. Then they go back to Leonard. So the teams that have their goaltending straightened out, they have an advantage, obviously. I mean, teams like Minnesota, teams like Anaheim with Gibson. If you have solid goaltending, you got to step up on some of these also-rans and some of these teams battling to get in the playoffs because some of those teams don't know who the hell their number one is.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And although I talked to somebody this morning who was about this whole situation, and he said, well, and he was one of my favorite guys to talk to. He's like, how many teams really, how do you define number one? We talked about this, and it's always a tough thing to define. He said, how many teams do you really think have a number one goalie in the NHL right now? And he said 5, and I said, well, more than that, right? And he's like, no, I don't know. Like, what would you call number one?
I'd say about a dozen.
About a dozen, right?
Yeah.
I like that, Russ. That's perfect for you.
I think it works. Yeah.
I'm glad we're keeping you busy enough, and you're concentrating enough on the show to be able to find time to.
Wow, that's more like it.
So I see the halo, but I don't see anything else. Oh, that okay, got it. All right. Yeah.
Oh no, you didn't.
I see the bald clown head. Sorry, I just thought that was normal. All right, so. Oh man, so yeah, I mean, his point was pretty accurate. I mean, we all define number one goalies by what, obviously, no one has, there's Dubnyk and there's Price and, there's Bobrovsky and there's obviously Lundqvist. Rask. All right. And so that's 5. And then you got to go to Holtby. That's 6.
Yeah.
But and I guess Crawford's 7. Right. So, but now where do you go?
Martin Jones, you have to include in that.
Martin Jones, okay, yes, but you see what he did last night.
Yeah, but he still is, so that's 8.
No, he still is, but he also
Luongo 9.
Luongo is a number 1 right now.
Yeah, he's a number 1.
I mean, he was number 1 for a long time, but
Murray and Miller's a number 1.
So I was talking to somebody yesterday about a rumor.
I would say there's 10 to 15. Miller's a number 1 too.
Was a number 1 maybe, but now.
Well, no, but he is today. That's what I mean.
In the Atlantic, I think you have 4: Price, Rask, Anderson, and Luongo. In the Metro, you've got Bobrovsky, you've got Holtby, you've got Lundqvist. I think you have to say Cam Ward the way he's playing this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have Schneider. That's 9. That's 9. That's 9 in the East. I think we will have at least 3 in the West. So
yeah. So all right. So maybe we've got. Let's just
12 to 15.
Let's say roughly half the teams are number 1 goalies. Okay, we can say that. Okay, so half the teams are number 1 goalies. That's not really. I mean, that really changes the way you define number 1 because technically they all have number 1 goalies.
Right. Well, think of it this way: of the teams that I just read off, of the 9 in the East, 8 of them are probably playoff teams. So only one, Schneider, is not going to be in the playoffs. So it pretty much makes out that you need a number one goalie to get in the playoffs. You're not going to, it's not going to be like a Bob Sauve, Don Edwards situation from the 1980s with Buffalo, where they split down the middle 40 to 41 games. You don't do that anymore unless if you don't have a number one. If you have 2 number twos, you don't have a number one.
Right, but we just named 3 playoff teams that don't have a number one, and then if Calgary were to get in,
right,
is Chad Johnson really a number one? Like that's up in the air too.
He's a pseudo number one because they have no.
Yeah,
other.
no, it's yeah. I mean, to me, it's, and he said so that when you go about now, you start to say, okay, Dallas needs a number one goalie, right? Well, they have. I mean, there is a situation here where if Tampa were to fall out of it, which doesn't seem possible, but if they were to just they can. I keep waiting for the moment when Tampa's going to turn on. We're all doing that, right? But then they come back and they win 1 game and then they lose 2. That's the way they're playing right now. And it's just, you're not going to get back in it if you do 1 and 2 every 3 games.
They can make trades. I think at the end of the day, if they had to trade for a really sharp defenseman because they could see their defense isn't very good. That's really their problem.
This is leading to where I'm going to, because they are. This leads to the higher probability, according to him, that Ben Bishop is going to be moved. And because the fact that we've all talked about it before, that I've said the same thing. The Caps, I mean, the Penguins and the Lightning, I'm in agreement with what you've all said and written about. I've wrote what you wrote, Mike, in the Hockey Buzz rumor thing. I'm in agreement that, you need that both those teams really wouldn't, why not? But now Pittsburgh, you can say, okay, they are in a situation where they absolutely can go with 2 goalies and they're fine. And they're gonna have issues later, but they are a Stanley Cup legitimate contender. They're a Stanley Cup defender, so that all that plays into it. Now the Lightning, on the other hand, if they were to fall out of it too far, over the next month or so, this is a team that cannot afford to miss the playoffs. The Lightning are not. They have too much going and too much money invested and too much hope, going down there. And they built this thing. If they miss the playoffs, that's devastating for Tampa. All right.
I would grant you that if they fall out of the race, then they will move Bishop, because then
Right. Well, no, I don't think they're going to fall. There's no way Tampa falls out of the race to the point where, at the deadline you can say they're not going to have a chance. Like they're going to be within 5 or 6 points at the worst. I would think.
The only thing I'm saying is that the market for a goaltender like Bishop, a rent-a-goalie, is pretty small. There's a few teams. I mean, I don't think Dallas is a playoff team anymore. I think that I would be very surprised that they climb back into the race in the West. They're one of the few teams. Calgary, they're in the thick of the race, and they were interested in Bishop because they tried to arrange a trade with Tampa last year and even got to the point of talking extension with Bishop, but the deal never came.
I was told that they're done. They're done with Bishop completely.
Right.
And I was told that bridge was burned. So.
But the thing is,
Dallas though is still very much interested in Bishop, and what I've heard, is that you could see Niemi coming back to Tampa along with something very significant. Okay, that what has to happen is that and then Tampa turns around and buys Niemi out, right? That's what happens. So they can turn around, they can say, okay, we're going to buy out Niemi.
Well, the guy who would have to the type of player who would be a significant guy would be a Klingberg, because they're looking for a defenseman. But again, I mean, I don't know if
they're not trading Klingberg.
Yeah, they're not trading Klingberg. I could see them trading one of those young defensemen because,
and I'm with you. And then the question comes up, and this came up in my discussion, and I think that this is totally valid, and I kind of agree with it. Maybe this isn't Lettinen's or Niemi's fault at all. And the fact of the matter is, if you put Bishop there, because of the way that team plays, anyone's going to get shelled.
Right, that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
That really
so then you make this big trade. You get rid of Klingberg and Niemi, say, and you end up with Bishop, who is obviously you're going to want assurances. You're going to want to sign him right away. You're going to want to know you can do that. All that stuff has to happen in order to make the Bishop trade, right? Especially if you're giving up something significant. But then who knows that this is a team that just isn't a good place for goalies to be, and Bishop is not for that kind of team. I would think, in my opinion, that Niemi would be the right kind of goalie for the Dallas Stars, and yet he hasn't been.
I'll give you. I think here's what I think will happen with Tampa. I think right now we're looking at a really good season for Jonathan Drouin. He's got 29 points in 37 games with 13 goals. But the way they've coveted Nemesnikov and Kucherov and the other guys, it does seem like he's going to not ever get to play the kind of minutes and get the kind of power play time that he's really deserving of. If they are really needing a top 4 defenseman, you could trade Jonathan Drouin and get a top 4 defenseman, and that might put him in the Stanley Cup. And I think that's a move that Tampa now is willing to make, that they have Stamkos locked up.
And this was totally unsubstantiated, but Adrian Dater reported this last week that there were hints of a Drouin to Colorado for Eric Johnson trade.
I can see that.
The thing that doesn't make any sense is Colorado's going all over the place looking for defense, and they're going to trade their number 1 defenseman. That's what
they probably want to get out from his contract. That's the thing.
Yeah, but no, I don't see that at all. I mean, I don't think that even helps Tampa really. I mean,
I'm sure they'll get a defenseman back like Andre Schuster or somebody.
I was told I learned a lot about Colorado that I can't get into. That's crazy. I did spend a lot of time over the weekend researching the Avalanche to see what the heck was going on with all this stuff. And it kind of transitions into my rumors for today. Because what basically I found, first of all, is I talked to maybe, let's say about, let me look at my notes right here. I can tell you, maybe I was going to say six other teams, right? All of which have inquired about Matt Duchene, okay, in some way, shape, or form. 3 of which who were told, yes, we would trade him to you, and 3 of which were told, no, we wouldn't trade him to you. So what is happening is Matt Duchene is 100% available as long as you're a team that they're willing to trade him to. And that's kind of interesting. And a couple of these teams are surprising. Like, there are teams in the East that you wouldn't say, why are they not trading him to the East? Like, there's some strange things that really would surprise you. There's other reasons that I was told that I can't get into, but
it could be based on, and I don't know if he has limitations of no move or limited no trade, but it also could be a team that you look at their prospect depth. You look at what they have in the.
No, it's not that. Yeah, I thought that too. No, but to be clear on this was literally like, he's not available to you. This is like before they even got into a discussion.
I mean, that would make sense of teams in the West and teams that they're.
I know. That's what I thought too. But there's actually some teams in the East, and it just shows you that there is a huge amount of dysfunction going on in Colorado, in my opinion. Like, there's
or maybe they have talked to Matt, and there's teams that Matt doesn't want to play for, and they're trying to do the best thing.
That's also very possible. You're right about that. Although I went down that path, and I didn't get a great answer, so I can't tell you for sure. But the closest thing I got to that was that they felt like Matt would go wherever he was traded, because that's they think he's the kind of player he is, and if a team wants him, he'll go there. Right. Because he is that kind of guy. He's a really class guy, and then he also he's not going to play for a team that doesn't want him and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, but saying that you'll go wherever you're traded and saying that you want to go somewhere more are
right. That's a different thing. Yes.
But even what's interesting about this is, even when in the past, when I've seen players who said, I will not go there, I will not go to that city, I have still heard teams negotiate with them, because there is still that feeling of like, okay, we're going to negotiate, and the teams often have the attitude that they can convince the player later if they can get a good enough deal going. So they'll still talk. Even I know for a fact that I've seen this.
Sure. But that's when, look, New York can get away with that. The Rangers can get away with that. There's a few teams, LA can get away with that, but most teams can't. And like, as an example, there was no way in hell Vinny Lecavalier was going to Montreal. There just was no way that
he wasn't going to any Canadian teams. And he made that clear. Like, he made it clear, I'm not going to any teams in Canada. Which, kind of as it was at the time, he didn't want that known, because he loves Canada, but he just didn't want to go back to Canada.
Right.
He was a guy, I think, whose family lived in Tampa for a long time. They wanted to live somewhere. So I just think there are situations like that for sure. Jason Spezza was another one who didn't want to stay in Canada. And these are Canadian players, right? So these are surprising things. But in this case, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I just think Matt Duchene is not in that boat. The interesting thing is you have Landeskog and you have Duchene. You have the 2 players that are basically teams are talking about to them, and they and they are both forwards, and they do want defense, just like you're saying, Mike. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for defense. And I heard one rumor like, okay, Seth Jones for Matt Duchene. All right, so Seth again being moved, but obviously we know that
That's not happening.
We know that Seth is just made the All-Star team. Seth is, of course, has the connections with Sakic, right, in Colorado. That's always been talked about that he would go there. Matt Duchene is a perfect fit for Columbus. 100% perfect fit, but I was told there's no way they will talk to Columbus. And it's just a strange thing. So there's weird things. There's just odd things going on there. Columbus has a ton of prospects.
And I don't think Columbus is trading Seth Jones.
No, they aren't. Columbus, but they're not even having a discussion about. And
what I was going to say was, I think if we know that Columbus is probably going to look for forward help before the deadline.
Right.
We know that they have an overabundance of defensemen. If they move one, it's not going to be Jones. It's not going to be Werenski. It could be Ryan Murray. It could be a David Savard or Jack Johnson. I think
it won't be Johnson because Tortorella loves Johnson.
He does love him, but I think Mike's right. I do think in this case that anybody but Werenski and Jones would be available to get a Matt Duchene. They don't have a center. They don't have a top line center. So to them, they look at Duchene as exactly what they need, right?
I think if they traded Sonny Milano and David Savard, they could get Matt Duchene. And they could get the throw a pick in there. I think they could get him for that.
If they're willing to, if Duchene's willing to go there, like we talked about, if they're willing to talk to them about it. And apparently there's history there. There's weird history there going on between those two teams. There's all these things.
You know what I think the weird history is, Ek? I think John Tortorella doesn't like Matt Duchene. I think there was something. Possible. I think there's something with that. I can't quantify it, but I thought I remembered hearing something once where maybe there was some criticism. It may be that, but I don't know for sure.
Yep. Well, I think it goes more into management of Colorado and some connections that might be there with Columbus. So some of you can draw some of the parallels there. But there's certain things that are, and these things are interesting. These are the kind of things that this time of year come through. Now, the other rumor I wrote about over the weekend, and I feel very strongly about, is Montreal. Now, Montreal, I think, is the leading candidate for Matt Duchene. I think they are the place that they are the team that wants him the most. Now, and that is a little bit strange because, not a little bit strange. I think Duchene's a great fit in Montreal. Of course, he's a great fit anywhere. He's, Montreal could use a top line center. Montreal would move Plekanec if they had to.
Well, please,
but they can't, right? Because obviously. Because
Plekanec is declining. I think he's 34 years old. He's overpaid at $6 million.
Right, and he's impossible.
They want to get rid of him because they want to bail on that salary. But all I know is if I'm Joe Sakic and Montreal is interested in Matt Duchene, the first two names out of my mouth are Noah Juleson and Mikhail Sergachev, and I can't imagine Bergevin moving either one of them. Now he might move Nathan Beaulieu in a deal, but I don't think that's enough because Nathan Beaulieu's been in the league for now going on his third year, really hasn't showed a lot of offense. I think
but he hasn't played the kind of minutes that you really in the playoffs. He actually did very well.
He started to play those minutes, Russ, but he's not. He still isn't showing the big offense. And
what is he? 21.
If Colorado ends up getting the first pick overall for some reason, which is possible. And they go out and they get this kid, right? What's his name?
Nolan Patrick.
Nolan Patrick, right? They get Nolan Patrick. And you add that to a team with Nathan McKinnon, Landeskog, and Matt Duchene, you're looking at a serious offense, right? Like you're already looking at a serious offense. But is this the case of another Edmonton type situation where you have all these players until you get the superstar, and Nolan Patrick's not Connor McDavid, right? So he's not going to be that guy.
And I'm stealing Russ's thunder here, but the thing is that, and I know that in a couple draft lists that we respect, Timothy Liljegren has gone down from say second to like sixth or seventh. But if it's Colorado with the first pick, and they've been so focused on their defense and improving it over the last few years. Yeah. You can't improve it through free agency. They're trying to make trades to add defense. I wouldn't doubt if they have the first pick or the second pick that they take Liljegren over Patrick.
Yeah, well, that'd be interesting because this is the team that took McKinnon. Remember when there was the debate with the defenseman who I can't think of his name. Second, Ekblad, right? Ekblad.
No, it was
not Ekblad.
It was Seth Jones.
Seth Jones, right? Sorry, Ekblad. Jeez. Seth Jones, and so this is that they've shown before when they had this situation before, and at that point they needed defense as well, and everybody was like saying, but Nathan McKinnon was just considered that much better than Seth Jones, and it was probably the right pick to make.
It wasn't a mistake not to take McKinnon, obviously, because he's a great player. But you look at their scenario, and I think they overpaid Tyson Barrie and Tyson Barrie is a one-dimensional defenseman. He's a good offensive defenseman, but defensively he's a nightmare. And Eric Johnson he's played well for them, but I don't think he's a number one defenseman. And I think he's making $6 million a year. He's been fairly durable. He's injured right now, but I don't know. I just that's all they have. The rest of their defense is Eric Jelena, Patrick Weirkosh, Feder Tootin. It's a bunch of journeymen and guys you picked up off the scrap heap. It's not an answer. It's not a defense that you can depend on.
Yeah. All right. I think I found the situation with Colorado.
We can figure it out later.
All right.
Let's move on to something else. Okay.
Well, let's talk. You talked in your blog about JVR.
Yeah, that's not the. That's not it. Chris.
Oh, sorry. I think there's some stuff there.
There might be more than one situation going on actually. So that's okay. But I didn't want to get into it. All right. So yeah, sorry. JVR. Okay. Now I have been, I've written about the Flyers having interest in him. We've written about the Devils, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Rangers have, come up in JVR talks, which I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Not at the moment, but they've always had an interest in him, and he's had an interest in them.
Yeah, of course. And we talked about the Islanders before, which I was kind of poo-pooing because, just personally, I don't think he's the right complementary player for Tavares. But a lot of people, I could be totally wrong. But now I have heard more that the Islanders are making a push, and the Islanders have to make a push basically. And there aren't many places for the Islanders to go where they can get a player of JVR's quality as a winger. They've also definitely talked regarding Landeskog, but Landeskog isn't exactly the answer to them. He's a great complementary player if you're in one spot, but he's not going to be your top.
He's not a top liner.
Yeah, he's not your top liner to play with Tavares. Where Riemsdyk could be. And I think that there are thoughts there.
Look, their best bet is if they got Matt Duchene. If you had Tavares and Duchene, you'd have something.
Right, yeah. You'd have something. That's true. But and they will. I haven't heard they're really interested in Duchene yet. I know that there are people out there who are reporting it beyond me, but I have not heard. People I've talked to have not heard much about that. But I have heard them involved very much so with Van Riemsdyk. And, so that's something that you can keep an eye on for sure. And I think that now, whether the Leafs or not, based on what they believe in is their future here, whether they're willing to go, you might have a better idea than me, Mike, on that. I don't know.
Well, there's a lot of debate right now because of the fact that, the Leafs are challenging for a playoff spot. They're in third place right now that, don't mess with success. Don't entertain trading Van Riemsdyk until at least the summer. But if you look at it through the eyes of Lou Lamoriello, and we know that he's, methodical and, maybe a little bit cold-hearted when it comes to running his teams and saying, okay, I'm going to do what's best for the team in the long run. You get the most for Van Riemsdyk before March the 1st. You get if you trade him, the team that gets him gets a playoff out of him and another year at $4.25 million. And that, I think you'll get a lot more for him then than you would during the summer when he only has just the year left. Now,
they're looking smart. He doesn't have to do it today, right? He can wait this out and wait for them to drop in the standings too.
Right. Oh, yeah. It's fodder right now in Toronto because everybody's focused on the fact that the team is competing for a playoff spot right now, which a lot of people thought would have been unheard of after 41 games. But yeah, they've got another 20 games to find out where they're going to be before March the 1st. But I look at the situation, and I put up a poll on Twitter this morning. Looking at the situation, if you trade him before March the 1st, you probably get the most in return. If you trade him in the summer, you'll still get a good return. If you wait till the deadline in 2018, you'll get the least return. If you try to extend him, he's probably not going to give you a hometown discount because this will be his last big contract. He's going to be 29 years old in the summer of 18 when he comes up for free agency. He's probably going to be asking for in the neighborhood of $5.5 to $6 million a year on a 5 or 6 year deal. That's the money you're probably going to be spending on a defenseman because they'll be spending money on Nylander and Matthews and Marner, and they've already locked up Kadri and Riley and Anderson. But you're going to need money for another defenseman, which is where they really need to add. And if you and someone had the thought of, oh, you just let him play his contract out and let him walk, and you get the cap room. That would be the most idiotic of all the scenarios, simply because you've got an asset there. You've got an asset that's valuable. If you're not going to keep them, you move them. You don't just, the $4.25 million is valuable, but to the team that has $30 million in cap space next year, it's not as much, not as much valuable.
Yeah.
So you need to add to the core group. You need at least one, maybe two, and possibly three defensemen on that blue line. So if you have a guy who you've determined you're not going to spend $6 million on, then you trade him.
But you got to make sure someone's coming next year. I mean, whether that's Kapanen or Leipzig, or who are they going to actually have faith in, unless they reach out in free agency? I mean, they might reach out in free agency too.
I think the thing is, I think they have enough confidence in some of the young guys that, like a Leipzig or Kapanen. And Kapanen had a serious injury last week, so he may be out for a couple months. But I think they have enough confidence in those guys or even some of the guys who are playing on lower lines, like they could bring up Soshnikov and move him up into a top 9 role, move up Brown to a higher line. I mean, they could just do it internally, Russ. So I think that's possible. But the one intriguing thing about the rumor with Philadelphia, Eck, and we know if it's Philadelphia and if it's the Leafs, that the Flyers have the pieces that the Leafs would potentially want.
Yep.
Young defensemen like a Moran or a Sanheim or a Philippe Myers. All those defensemen have one key thing: they're exempt in the expansion draft. So the Leafs would not have to protect any one of them. If they pick up any defenseman anywhere, if they pick up Travis Hamonic from the New York Islanders, not that this is a big concern, but I think with the Leafs, they don't want to lose players that they think can be part of the mix. If they add one defenseman, they have to expose a guy like Connor Carrick, who they like. Now, Connor Carrick.
But here's the thing. Okay, so let's hold that for a second. Let's say they made a trade with Philly, and let's say they didn't have to give up too much, but let's say it was Leipzig for Robert Hogg. Now Hogg they'd have to protect, but Hogg is better than Connor Carrick, I think, or has more potential.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that type of deal. I think if we're talking about a JVR deal, the best case scenario would be.
No, I know you're talking about a JVR deal, but let's say they don't do a JVR deal.
I don't think they're going to trade Leipzig, unless it's for a Sanheim or a Moran or something like that.
And you can't get that much, but you can get Robert Hogg, who really is having a great season, and he could play in the NHL next year.
He can play in the NHL, but Russ, I think right now they're looking to strike to get the top 4 defensemen.
But what if they strike out from that, which is very possible. Even with JVR, they may strike out in the top 4 market. That's a reality.
They might. Then if they strike out before March the 1st, then they try again in the summer. But I think that's where they're going. I think it's either because getting a bottom pairing defenseman, they can call up Renat Valiev or Victor.
Yeah, but here's the thing: Hogg is not going to be a bottom pairing defenseman for his whole career.
No, but they're looking.
People start there.
But the window for the Leafs right now, there's a long-term window, but there is that short-term window of 2 to 3 years when you have all these guys on their entry-level deals that you need to take advantage of, and that's a thing. I think they're looking for a defenseman who's young enough to be with the team for a long time, but also good enough now to contribute to a run for a playoff spot and deep into the playoffs in the next 2 to 3 years.
Here's the problem for the Leafs, the way I see it. The Rangers picked up Michael Grabner off the scrap heap. He will get more goals than JVR. You could get somebody to replace JVR's numbers much easier than you can get any top 4 defenseman.
Right, but that's the reason why. That's the reason why they will probably use JVR to get the top 4 defensemen, because they can replace them.
Well, no, but they'll have to use more than that. That's my point.
And I don't think that's a problem because
it's easier to replace Van Riemsdyk in today's hockey world. It is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And also the fact that he has 1 more year on his contract is really good. But at the same time, it doesn't mean he's extended for a very long time.
Did you have something cooking in the Easy Bake Oven? What was that?
Yeah. No, there's a couple things. I know that's the Easy Bake Oven. Sorry, I usually turn my notifications off on here so you can't hear them. Keep an eye on Buffalo with in terms of Matt Duchene as well. They're a big player in this.
The only thing I'm worried about there is Matt Duchene and Ryan O'Reilly weren't exactly pals in Colorado.
Right.
That would be a little bit of a peculiar mix, but
things can change. That's
and again, the Sabres don't have the prospect pool that matches what the Avalanche are looking for. They've got Ristolainen, Jake McCabe, 2 young defensemen, and then after that you got Brendan Gooley, and there's one other defenseman in their pipeline.
And William Borgen's pretty good. I mean, yeah. And he's a college guy. I think he would match it I don't think they can get Gooley, but I think if you got Borgen, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's going to take, you'd be talking about that plus a Gergensons or something else.
Yeah.
It would take a lot, and I just don't know where. I would be surprised if the Sabres trade for anything other than a defenseman. They're in the defense market big time.
Yeah, no, I believe that. But they do. Pagula, they like making big moves. They
do.
And sure. This is the big. This is what Montreal wants to do, and Montreal's also talked about Shane Doan as well. And I got a funny letter about that the other day of someone telling me, "Oh, you're crazy! Stop the Shane Doan to Montreal thing. He's slow and doesn't fit into." And I understand all that. I can get all that, but the people don't. Yeah.
You mentioned them potentially trading Doan a couple months ago, and only in the last week, like Elliot Friedman on Saturday Hot Headlines and a couple other Sarah McClellan from the Arizona paper, they're saying that Doan will be potentially open to waiving his no move to go certain places where he has a chance to win. He's 40 years old. He's probably retiring at the end of the year. He wants one last crack at the cup. And to me, it makes sense that he stays in the West because that's always been the
and San Jose and Nashville are 2 teams that have always been connected with him. But
LA
maybe too, possibly. I also heard a lot about the Capitals with him, and I think that's an interesting one too because the Caps could use that. Remember last year they picked up Mike Richards. Mike Richards, and that was a kind of disaster. But they picked him up for a reason.
Well, Doan's faster than him.
That I know they picked him up for a reason that they still
not much.
That something the Capitals still feel they need. And it's a combination of grit, experience, a certain hockey thing that Barry Trotz really wants in that organization that he doesn't necessarily see. And Doan brings all that. He brings all that. And Trotz and Doan are tight too.
Here's the thing, though. All right, this is the question we'd have to ask Barry Trotz, and I think we know the answer. You want to get the most out of Shane Doan, you kind of need him on the power play, let him get in front of the net. He's really good at that. Is he really going to get that chance in Washington? Who are you going to sit?
No, he's on your second power play unit, no question about it. But you have to look at it like one of those situations where you're bringing him in as depth. And if someone goes down,
5-on-5, he slows you down too.
He does slow you down, but he does bring a certain element of experience and to a locker room that really is.
They already have experience. To me, it's you have Justin Williams, who's literally hanging on by a thread. He's got 13 goals, but he's not what he used to be. You have a lot of these high-skilled guys. If it's me and I'm the GM, I can't bring in more age into that room. I can't.
Yeah.
Whereas the 3 California teams, I could make a case for each one of them with Doan coming in and playing, say, a third-line role in Anaheim or a third-line role in LA or San Jose, and him meshing with guys who he's played with internationally like Thornton and Marleau. Getzlaf and Perry. I think that makes a lot more sense.
I do too.
Yeah, no, it makes more sense to me too, but it doesn't.
To me, Washington has to stay fast. If they don't, they're going to have a problem.
Yeah, but what we start to see at this time of year are these contingency type thoughts, and a lot of those contingency thoughts do tip us off as to where these teams are thinking their weaknesses are, and that's why we have to really keep a good eye on this time of year.
Well, look, let's just. If we rewind everything, last year my opposition to Mike Richards was he slows you down. Is he a really good enough penalty killer to make it a difference, or is it better to have somebody younger? This year they've got Lars Eller. I think we've answered the question.
Yeah, no, Lars Eller has done a good job for them, right? And there's no question about that. And he is exactly what they need, and he's big and he's strong.
So, instead of Shane Doan, you're better off getting somebody in their 20s that can still fill that position, but isn't as beat up as Shane Doan, unfortunately.
Or a veteran who's got a little more speed.
A little more jump.
I mean, and granted, he has slowed down. He has slowed down dramatically from his days in New Jersey. But a guy like Brian Giunta, who's a pending UFA, I think he's still got enough there to play a third, fourth line role with somebody, kill penalties. He's a good leader. You could even see him maybe go back to Montreal or Washington. I think that makes sense.
See, if you told me like Matt Cullen, if he wasn't with Pittsburgh, I would get that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, all I can say is this: you have to have the guy who's super old, who the Stanley Cup is handed to, like from the captain. Every team has one when they win the Stanley Cup. Is it going to be Vanek who gets it, handed to him from Jonathan Taves or whatever?
Isn't Brooks Orpik old enough?
No, but it's got to be the guy who's like hasn't played for the team forever. It's always that like guy. It's like the chemo team and in factor, you can call it or whatever. Just like he's going to be handed the cup, And I could see Vanek being that. I could see Jonathan Taves giving it to Vanek, that's that kind of thing. You could see Ovechkin handing it to Shane Doan. Like there's certain things that make sense.
I mean, we're already talking about theoretical when we're talking about the Capitals and the Stanley Cup. So I don't even know if we should.
No, I agree with that 100%. I think that this Caps team is way better than last year's Caps team. I'm going to throw that out there. And I think that might sound strange.
I think it's better. I don't know if it's way better because I don't know if Holtby's the same. That's the problem.
I think Holtby will be the same. And I do think there's a definite aspect to when a team plays as well as they're playing right now. And the whole beginning of the season was definitely a letdown from the fact that the Caps just dominated last year. Right. And it's hard, and they know they're going to make the playoffs. So it's just a matter of how they're going to get back, what they're going to do.
Right.
And strangely enough, they're better not because of players that they added, but because the young players that they have gotten better. Orlov is better.
Yeah.
Metsov is better. Burakovsky is better.
Yeah, Belleru's a nice ad, but you're right about the other parts. You are.
Yeah. So we are running out of time here today, but it was a great show as always, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Stay tuned. If your team has a bye week this week, enjoy that. I'd like to debate the bye week at some point because it's funny because we have.
Is there a debate? Like, what's the positive aspect of it?
I know it's not a debate. There's so many Flyers fans who are complaining to me right now. And last week, going to get letters of complaints from everybody whose team isn't playing for that week. Yeah. It's a lovely thing. It's a lovely thing. It's a wonderful thing to add to my inbox.
It gets you to watch the other teams.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, I watch every team, and I know if your particular team isn't playing this week, then fine. But whatever. It's a fascinating.
Watch more alumni games.
Watch more alumni games. Exactly. That's all the time we have for today, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Please subscribe.